Uh, Observing your defensive backs during the spring game, I thought they did a great job. And with that being said, do you think Terry Bussey's still going to be on defense, or are you going to try him at wide receiver?
I'm going to answer this one two different ways. The first one is this, and this is for all Aggies. We are very, very excited about Terry Bussey. Let's just remember he's 17. That's the one thing I just want to caution everybody about. No, I think, we're going to evaluate kind of what this roster looks like heading into the summer. I think Terry has communicated with us, and we have with him his willingness and ability and probably even desire to help on either side of the ball, and ultimately maybe even help to some degree on both sides of the ball. We're going to try to figure out where the best way to get that young man opportunity to help us early is. I think it's probably all up in the air. For sure, helping with the ball in his hands in the return game is something that we foresee, and then I think we've got to try to figure out the best path for him to have early success. And and nowadays with the roster still being a little bit in flux as we head in through May, I think it's maybe a little bit TBD in terms of where the best place for him to move is going forward.
Howdy, Coach. Welcome back to Aggie Land.
Howdy.
Question for you. NIL and the transfer portal has transformed college athletics. It's driven one coach out. You seem to approach it as differently than something to approach it with trepidation. Talk about your approach going forward with NIL and the transfer portal.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Kenny earlier. One of my favorite movies of all time is Moneyball, and there's a great scene in that movie where Brad Pitt is talking to the general manager, or talking to the head scout, and they're talking about changing how they view baseball, and the head scout is wanting him to stay in the old ways, and Brad Pitt utters the line, "Adapt or die." And I think that's where we are right now in college athletics. I think we have two choices. We can embrace what college football and college athletics looks like right now and give ourselves the best opportunity moving forward to be successful, or we can have opinions about NIL, transfer portal, this, that, and the other, but really those things are irrelevant because they're not going away and they're not changing. And so I think my message across the board to Aggie supporters everywhere is this is what college football looks like today. And like we've done always around here, let's figure out a way to do it the best. Let's do NIL the best. Let's make it not the most, not the highest, but let's let our program be run in a way that we're identified as, wow, I wish we had a program like that. Let's do the transfer portal the right way. Let's make sure that we always win in the incomings and outgoings column. Let's make sure that we attack and add value where we see it appropriate, but let's make sure that we're keeping in mind what Aggies are and what Aggies represent, and that we're finding people who will be great Aggies to bring into this program. I think if you look at what we did this winter, we certainly have added a lot of talent and a lot of kids who will both start and contribute this fall in large ways. I think maybe even more than that, though, I think you'd be very proud of who they are and how they go about their business. I think they are great young men that represent this program the right way, and I think that matters sometimes as much as anything when you go into the transfer portal. And so it's not a perfect science. It never will be. We will do the best we can to navigate it the best we can to make Texas A&M football what it needs to be. But I just think when you're in this day and age, there's no reason fighting for what it used to be, because it's never going back there. And so we've got to embrace it. We've got to move forward, and then we've got to figure out how to make it work for us, not against us.
Coach, welcome home. You have to juggle recruiting high school players. You have to recruit transfer portal. What do you have on your staff to do that, and how do you manage to keep it under the 85 limit scholarship?
Yeah, I think in terms of the staff, I think, really we've moved towards a model that kind of resembles the NFL. I think you used to have, coaches who had all these double duties, right? They coached, and then they were the recruiting coordinator, and then they were the scout. And I think in this day and age, with the speed at which things are going, we've been able to hire a scouting department that really functions like an NFL organization. And so Derek Miller serves as our general manager. He has himself and 5 others represent a 6-man team that is constantly pouring through film, evaluating high school players, players in the portal, players potentially going in the portal, just making sure that we constantly have our eyes on where they need to be from a scouting standpoint, so that as things happen, we can keep up with the pace at which they happen. I think we have a player development department now that kind of plays a role in helping recruit young men into the program, but also plays a role of helping them acclimate into the program. I think that's something that we added that has been a very beneficial thing. And then you have a large coaching staff now that can kind of help manage and fill in gaps, as coaches are sprinting on the road or sprinting all over the country, chasing kids in the portal. It's important to have a really strong infrastructure still in place in our building for our current roster, because I think in everything you just said, and this happens all over the country, the one thing that gets lost is our own roster, right? And then making sure that we continue to develop those young men and be there for those young men so they still feel as though they're always the priority that they need to be. And so, I think that's probably our strategy and how we do it and how we manage it. But you've got to be able to juggle a lot of balls in the air right now in college football for sure.
Howdy, Coach Elko, back here in the back.
Yeah, howdy.
An easy question for you. When our Fighting Texas Aggie 2024 football team runs out of the tunnel against Notre Dame, what 4 words do you hope to describe that team coming out of the tunnel?
Yeah, I think we stand behind the word grind, so I'm going to use 5. The G is grit. I hope you see a team that will mentally persevere through everything and will play with unbelievable mental toughness. We hope you see a team that has relentless effort in how they attack the field and how they attack the game. The N is the now, which is to live in the moment and be present where you are. And then a team that's dependable, so that the same team that runs out of the locker room against Notre Dame is the same team that runs out of the locker room every game. And in the middle of that, which is the one that we spend the most time on, is integrity. And that's what that I is for. And that when we're not running out of the tunnel, we still represent this university and this football program the right way. And so that's what I want this program to be. That's what I want this program to represent.
Howdy, Coach.
Howdy.
You mentioned football. Would you do us a favor and just speak a little bit to your view of 4th and 1?
Yeah. So, all right, this one's good. I like this one. So, analytics in the game of football, right? A lot like NIL. So, analytics has just become the crutch for every coach that makes a decision, right? So, you have some coaches that don't want to go for it on 4th and 1, and so they just say analytics are stupid and they make no sense. You have some coaches, like the one over in Oxford, who wants to go for it on 4th down all the time, and so he uses 4th down analytics to justify going for it all the time. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I think we use analytics always. We did it for the 2 years that I was there. I think it plays a role statistically in how you can give yourselves the best advantage to be successful. I think sometimes that will mean you will agree with the decisions we make. I think sometimes that will mean you will disagree with the decisions that we make, usually based on how many yards we actually get on the 4th down that we go for it. And so I learned that real quick as a head coach. And so, no, I think it plays a role. I don't think there's one universal way to go about it, nor do I think that I'll ever turn over game management straight to statistics. There's still a feel, there's still a gut feel that shapes the percentages based on how the momentum is going in the game. But I do think we use analytics and let that play a role in trying to help us win.
Howdy, Coach.
Howdy.
Love that you're back in town. I think there's a elephant in the room that we're all anxious about this year, but it's not in the shape of an elephant. It's in the shape of a longhorn. And so I just want to know, obviously there's a school down the street that we're anxious to play again this year. Very excited about. I know that you got to take it one game at a time, but I want to know if you've already started watching film on Stark, if you're ready for the T6.
I'm going to be careful here, because what I learned through coaches' nights is a lot of what I said gets out of these doors. And so as much as I want to comment on that one a lot of different ways, ways. I'm going to probably keep it a little bit more standard. Yeah, listen, it's not lost on me what that game means to Texas A&M, our fan base, our community. It's not lost on me what that rivalry stands for and represents. I do caution, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, but we do have a hope and goal that that win makes us 12-0, and that's something that's really important to us. And so, as important as we do identify that game and we know how big it truly is, I do think we got to spend a lot of time focused on us and our development and making sure that we improve on a daily basis. And I think that's something that we've talked a lot about internally too, and just a good time for this message. But like, our job is to make Texas A&M the best football program it can be. And I think we all know what that is, right? That is the premier football program in college football. That is our potential, that is our ceiling. The more time we spend internally focused on us and us raising our level and us improving and us doing the things that we need to do, the further we get closer to being that. And when we become that, it really won't matter what anybody's doing, least of all those people over in Austin.
Coach, I have a different approach, and that is when Manziel was here, his Heisman Trophy year, we had an all-pro offensive line. They were good, and also there was no injuries, which helped. But going into this year, our offensive line, can we be too deep or not?
Well, we can be too deep because I can put you in as the backup right guard. We'll be too deep for sure. Yeah, listen, we had a really good run for a really long time, but we were putting out first-round draft picks on the offensive line every year, and I don't think there's any doubt that that's a huge part of success on offense. It's even bigger in this conference, where I think the offensive and defensive lines are completely different than they are anywhere else in the country. Our ability to get really talented, really good on the offensive line as quick as we possibly can will play a huge role in our ability to be successful on offense. I think we are in a better place than we've been recently, and I just think we've got to continue to trend in that direction. I think those kids have a lot of pride. They know what they looked like on film last year. That's not lost on them. I do know that they will be a much scrappier, much grittier, much tougher group as we move forward into the fall, and certainly something that we can be a little bit more proud of and a little bit more behind. But it is certainly an area that we've got to continue to enhance and improve moving forward. I'm ready. Ooh. So I've been asked that question a lot. So I went to school in Philadelphia, so I have a little different lay of the land. So every time I get asked that question, I revert back to Abner's, which is a small little place on 38th and Chestnut, right across the street from where I went to college. And so they've taken by far the most of my money of any of the cheesesteak establishments. So anyone who doesn't know, Pat and Gino's are the two famous cheesesteak restaurants in Philadelphia. But Abner's is my choice. Abner's is where I go with that question all the time.
Coach, there's thousands of years of Aggie fandom sitting in this room alone, not less than 400,000 Aggies around the country. And what is your attitude different? How are you going to be different than the coaches that have come before you, that have we've always underachieved? I personally am tired of hearing about next year. I've had 55 years of waiting for next year. When is it going to change, and what are you going to do to change that?
Feels like a bit of a loaded question, I'm not gonna lie. This is what I will tell you. I think from day one that I've got here, I've promised nothing other than the fact that I will roll up my sleeves and go to work every single day to make this program the best program it can be. I think for the first time, you have an alignment of leadership from the president to the athletic director to the head football coach that is so critical in modern day college football. I think we have a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we have to fix and change for this program to ultimately reach what it needs to become. And I think you now have a group that is really together working on that. I think that will help us become the program that we are capable of becoming. I think it's, you can cut corners and not build a foundation and find ways to peak, but like any house with no foundation, it will ultimately collapse. I think what we've got to do is we've got to build the foundation through our infrastructure, through our athletic department, through what our football program truly represents, and chase building a football program, not always just chase finding the next great player, right? We've got to build a program that can last through the good, through the bad, through the ups, through the downs. That's what we're trying to do, and I think the thing that makes me different is just the work ethic and what I do. I don't promise, I don't promote myself, none of that stuff. I'm a student of football. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I love. I still remember when I got to tell my mom I was taking my Ivy League degree and going to work at Stony Brook University for $6,500 my first year out of college. She was very excited about her return on investment from my Ivy degree for what I was choosing to do. But that's what makes me different. I think that's what made me different throughout my career. I tell this to recruits all the time, so maybe as I'm trying to recruit you, I'll tell you, there's not very many people whose career started as the defensive coordinator at the United States Merchant Marine Academy and ended coordinating the third best defense in the country here at Texas A&M. And so I think my path is why you should have confidence in our future.
Coach,
Howdy.
glad you're back here in town. Certainly look forward to seeing your students next year. Quick question, you briefly mentioned it earlier, accountability and discipline. How do you ensure that that continues to be a part of your program, especially going into NIL and everything else that we have going on, and maybe that was previously lacking at some point in times during the season?
Yeah, certainly not going to comment on the past. I'll just tell you kind of my approach on this, and I think a lot of people maybe use NIL as an excuse for not being able to do the things that we used to do. At the end of the day, you guys are all very successful business people, right? That's what our alumni base is. There's no company, there's no corporation that works without culture. And culture is built off of accountability and discipline to each other, right? And that's something that has stood the test of time and success forever. We've got to find ways to continue to do that in the NIL generation and the portal generation. But like I told our team day one, don't challenge me to choose culture over you, because I'll pick culture every single time and you won't like the result. And I just think there's a firm, fast belief that I have that 85 people together doing this thing for Texas A&M and for everything that Texas A&M represents is the way we have success. And I've seen it and I know it, and as long as I stay true to that, that's how we'll continue to keep it going. And I have this little trick in the weight room called Coach Tommy Moffitt and his staff, and that helps a lot too. But don't tell anyone that.